So the process of the week that I want to talk about is budgeting. And I want to talk about budgeting because it dovetails with the organization strategy and the org chart development. So if somebody asks me, what are the key things I need in my business to succeed? I would say, number one, you need a plan, simple plan. One or two bullet points, it doesn't matter, but you need some kind of plan. Number two, you need a good organization strategy. So a chart like this that represents the business as in the future. That org chart would ultimately have job descriptions and documented processes, but at a basic level, just the organization chart. And then number three, you need a financial plan or a budget. So in the library, there is a new process called budget creation. So if I just went to running the business, and you go here, general, and then you'll see it here in the library. If some of you have downloaded already just our budget process, this has replaced that. So it has everything that one had in it, but it's just, it has more now. And the only thing that was really in the old one, I think, was the template itself. So you can add that process. Here it is. Some people, this word budget can scare you sometimes because you just think, oh, it's this huge, heady exercise that, doesn't ever work out anyway. Give it another shot. So here's just a simple work plan and just some elements of creating a budget. Talk about sales, total costs, profit. Here talks about looking at your strategic plan, like we discussed, deciding on profit margins, coming up with your income, fixed costs, variable costs, one-time expenses for the year. So you can look through this budget work plan to kind of get the 1, 2, 3s of it. I think most people know how to do a budget. It's just taking those steps to do it. So we've got a couple different budget templates here. There's a few other kind of financial tools as well. There's break-even analysis. So this, if you've never done something like this can be an interesting thing to kind of study more of the balance between this department and this department. Because at the point that they're in sync, you're at break-even, in a sense. It includes this as well, or the overhead expenses. But knowing what your break-even is, even at its simplest level, is an important thing to analyze. There's ratio analysis. So this can get very elaborate and complicated, but at a minimum it can do things like, assets versus liabilities, or gross profit is even a ratio. So all your variable costs minus your sales gives you your gross profit. Net profit, that's a phenomenal concept. So here, net profit is what these people are making, right? After everything else is said and done, everything else is paid for, what do the investors, the shareholders of the business get for their return on investment? Well, when the business is sold, they get something, but they should be getting something for just owning the business. But that requires there to be a net profit. There's different types of budget templates. There's this basic one here that I like. There's this version 2, which is a little bit more elaborate. But so here's like the basic budget template. So simply all you do is, if you don't have a budget now, I wouldn't even do it month to month. I would go quarter by quarter. So call this Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and do it for 1 year, and then maybe the next year. Maybe have a total for 2018 and just do the 4 quarters of this year. If you think about your revenue or your sales, think about it by profit center. If you sell more than one thing, identify your variable costs, identify your fixed costs. You can even take your P&L from your accounting system and cut and paste it into this. I think there's a work plan right here on how to do that if you have QuickBooks. The P&L, in a sense, is kind of like a budget structure. It should have sales. If you deal with variable costs, and most businesses do, it should have a variable cost section and fixed costs, and then net profit down here at the bottom. It's all just an algebra expression. If you have 3, then you can figure out the 4th. And you can flip it in any way that you want. You can force the net profit and then figure out what all these numbers have to be in order to create a net profit of that amount. How this is useful in regards to the organization strategy is if you have the org chart and you've got your expenses here, firstly, I can add all these salaries up and figure out exactly what my actual fixed expenses and variable costs need to be at the end of the 2 years, and I can put that, over here and list it out, and then I can backtrack it. So I can say, well, what do we need to do in Q4, 3, 2, 1 in order to grow to this level? You can then put in the hire dates. So if I'm going to hire an operations manager, that's going to go right into fixed cost salaries, and then that's going to push this number up here. What does sales need to be in order for me to hire that person? And you can do that for every position. You can start to think of the balance of these two departments. When do I need to hire people here in order to fulfill the sales here? So any way that you do this, even if you just had 4 numbers on this spreadsheet, if you're not doing anything, it's going to be better than that, clearly. There's another, make this big again, inside of the budgeting process here, there's another work plan on monitor and report. So this has some basic concepts about monitoring the budget. So this is where the budget falls apart 9 times out of 10. You may spend a couple hours or even a day that it takes to create a budget. Those of you who have a finance department or a bookkeeper and you don't have a budget, tell those people, this is build this for me. So building the budget is just the first step. It's the analysis of it that becomes essential to its success. So every month, or even quarterly, you don't even have to do it every month. Quarterly, ask for the numbers and then do a variance. What was it exactly compared to the budget? And then start asking yourself why. Why were expenses higher? Why did we make more money that month? Why? It's a good question to ask, even if you are successful. Well, why? Let's do more of that. Why were variable expenses too high this month? Even if you know the answer, being able to see the result of it through the numbers is empowering. This expectation here, falling short of budgeted figures, these are the things to think about. Don't give up. Even if you look at the first quarter and you were like, 50% wrong, readjust it. Go back and redo the budget, and then keep learning as you go. So this is the strategic work that's essential to the success of your business. And it doesn't have to be a big, long exercise. If you spent, anybody who doesn't do this and decides to do it, and you come back and tell me that this took, 20 hours in 1 week, then I will sit and help you figure out why, because it does not need to take that long. So review and monitor, that's essential. Another key thing to remember about, looking at the numbers, the org chart, all of that, is if you look at your budget and you see that the numbers are off or wrong, you didn't make the sales, expenses were too high, something was inefficient, something didn't work right, you don't quite get it, read into those numbers. If you see a material number that's way too high, read into that number until you figure out the cause. Or maybe you're down 5 customers from the last quarter. Read into those numbers and figure out what happened to those customers. And then identify process solutions. This is how TouchStone can be powerful to you, and how it can really help you change your business forever, rather than just putting out fires and waiting for them to come back up again. So look at those numbers. We call it reading the numbers. Get down to the bottom of what created that number, and then try to work on a process to fix it. A simple example would be if you have lots of leads, but you don't have a lot of sales, then I would suggest that your sales conversions is the problem. Decide if that's the problem. Look and see what more could you do with the sales process in order to increase the conversions. And increasing things by small percentage points makes a huge difference. So think into the budget and to the issues that it's giving to you, and then decide on processes that can make it better. So just to recap, Think about your strategic plan. Develop one if you don't have one. Again, we have a template for that in the Guiding the Business. Build out your organization chart as a picture of that business in the future. Think through the structure of these departments, the positions, the people. Marry it with the present situation. So think through people you have now, who's wearing what hat, who's doing what. Reorganize a bit if you need to. So take people who are spanning the organization and at least create a plan for how to move them out of that. Put in future hire dates for the positions you're going to hire in the future. Work on a budget which shows with numbers how this strategic plan or this organization chart is going to grow over the 2 years. Show it with the numbers, even round numbers. And remember, in the process library, there's tools for everything that I've mentioned. Budgeting is here, creating a budget, strategic plan is here. Next week, we are going to talk about job descriptions. So job descriptions, in my opinion, are the paramount, the best management tool ever. Like this is a tool that I couldn't live without, and that if a manager isn't using, they're really crippling themselves. This is what makes management successful in a business, this simple job description. And so next week I'm going to talk about technically how to build the job descriptions in TouchStone, but more importantly I'm going to talk about how to use this as a management tool. So any of you who are on the phone now, if you're the owner of the company and you have managers and you want them to come and ask questions and learn about how to use the TouchStone job descriptions as what I'm claiming to be the best management tool, then have them come next week. If you can't do that for whatever reason, remember that all these sessions are recorded and you can forward them the recording. But that will be next week.